Hey guys, and welcome back to the game room. This video is going to have a bit of everything really, so pickups, also some discussion, a bit of rambling, a bit of moaning as well, unfortunately, sort of towards the end of the video. So I'll start off then with pickups. Now, I mentioned previously in my collection tour that I had a Sega Game Gear that the wife bought me for Christmas, getting on for nearly 2 years ago now. But obviously I didn't mention and didn't document my collection, so I thought I'd do that now. So here's the Game Gear. Now, this thing is actually in really nice condition. I think the seller, the shop that sold this to my wife, has done the capacitors because it sounds nice and loud and the screen looks pretty good as well. The only thing is, they were so proud of it and so proud of how clean it was, whoever cleaned it has actually taken off the markings. There should be a 1 and a 2 and a line that goes between them above the 2 buttons here, and the word start should be written next to this blue start button here as well. But other than that, the Game Gear is fantastic. It works really well. I do plan at some point on getting the LCD mod upgraded screen that McWill provides and getting that fitted into this because, you know, it would be nice to have. I mean, the screens on these are terrible. We're talking, you know, early 90s tech. So the LCD displays back then weren't particularly good. But of course, there's a solution to that nowadays, which is great. So I'll get that for my Game Gear. So if we go through the games, we've got this SEGA, I'm just going to try and focus that for you. It's a SEGA game, pack 4-in-1, which has got 4 games on it. I haven't actually played this yet, so I don't know if it's any good and what games are on it. We got some Sonic 2, which is sweet. Got some Primal Rage, which I'm sure I played back in the day on, might have even been the Mega Drive, I can't remember. So, beat 'em up game. We got Columns, which actually came in the Sega Game Gear pack along with the TV tuner. My wife actually bought that sort of limited edition version of the Game Gear for me, which was nice of her. We've got Streets of Rage, Super Monaco GP. I'll come on to this cartridge in a second. We've got Space Harrier. We got some Wonder Boy. We've got Outrun Europa. A boxed and complete copy of Sonic Chaos, which is really, really cool. Do love Sonic Chaos. Got it on the Master System as well. And also boxed and complete copy of Lemmings, which is nice as well. So another thing that I've recently discovered is that there are different versions of the Game Gear, as you'd expect, different, you know, variations of it. A couple of the main different variations are that there's a version of the Game Gear which is referred to as a BIOS model, which is a later model, and the earlier versions didn't have said BIOS on it. What that means is that this Game Gear has got a bit like some of the Mega Drive models, some of the later Model 1s, and pretty much all the Model 2s and, you know, the Genesis 3, etc. have got, where you'll switch it on and you'll get some text on the screen saying it's produced by or under license from Sega Enterprises. That's what my Game Gear does with every game. Unfortunately, because of the fact that it's a BIOS Game Gear, it means this bootleg Gear 9-in-1 cart, which I picked up from a game shop down in Weston-super-Mare, doesn't work, I'm afraid, because of that, because this doesn't have the string of text, the Sega string of text that the console looks for when you switch it on, and so therefore it won't boot this. The Mega Drive, the ones with TMSS, are exactly the same. If you put a bootleg Mega Drive cartridge in that doesn't have that information, it just won't boot up at all. For the Sega Mega Drive, I've picked up Lotus 2 Rex, which is a cool game. I like Lotus Turbo Challenge. I've got the original on the Mega Drive boxed and complete now. And this is the second one, which is really cool. For the Sega Master System, I've picked up Operation Wolf, which is really awesome. There's just one problem. I can't play it. It actually requires the light gun, which is no surprise. Anybody that's seen this game, maybe even played it in the arcades or another system, knows that it's a shoot 'em up game. And it needs the light phaser. Now, I've got the light phaser, but I don't have a CRT television set, which means, of course, I can't play this because modern day plasmas, LCDs, LED televisions, you know, they don't work with these light gun games. So, unfortunately, I can't play this unless I pick up a CRT. I may do one day because there's some other shoot 'em up games like Point Blank and Time Crisis and Virtua Cop that I might pick up because they're good fun as well. Maybe, who knows? Depends really, doesn't it? Picked up a Super Game Boy so I can play my Game Boy games on the Super Nintendo on the big screen. This thing is pretty cool, but it was a pain in the ass to get working, believe it or not, guys. To start off with, I just could not get it to play. I'd get a black screen, so I gave the cartridge contacts a damn good clean, a deep clean, And then I could get the Super Game Boy screen to appear, but then it would just freeze, lock up straight away. So I did something that I would never normally do. I took my copy of Super Mario Land, I doused the contacts in rubbing alcohol, some isopropyl alcohol, and I literally did that numerous times. And then it worked. Then I plugged it into the Super NES, fired it up, and was playing some Super Mario Land, and it was working a treat. It must have been dirty, because as soon as I put in my Super Mario Land 2, it worked as well. So, Super Game Boy, don't really need to say too much about this. Play Game Boy games on your Super NES. It's an awesome little thing. So now it's time to have a little bit of... And that's another pickup, and it's a bit of a moan. So I picked up a Sony PSP off of eBay, ridiculously cheap. This is the PSP 2000 model, the slim model. This thing has got issues, which I knew about. I did know the screen was an issue. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that, but there are specks of crap all over the screen. It's actually got underneath the LCD panel. It's not here, and it's not on the outside of the LCD panel. I've already had this thing apart and had a good go at cleaning it because it was filthy. Basically, there's a sort of a seal that goes around the screen, and I think that has started to sort of go funny and break up and has actually got underneath the display. So at some point I may get a new screen for this. The other thing about this is, for some odd reason, it had this black PSP 2000 battery cover taped to it, and I absolutely hate it when people do things like that. But again, I knew about it because I saw it in the pictures on eBay. Took this off. I've got no idea why this was on. I guess, yeah, I can see that the battery cover itself was actually broken, and that's why they taped it on. So I then had to clean lots of remnants of tape, really old, horrible, nasty tape off of the PSP. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. I hate it when people do that. And you can see I've got a white cover, battery cover. It's actually a slightly different shade of white compared to the rest of it, but it's fine, you know, it does the job. PSP itself seems to work with the exception of another thing, and that is it will not read UMDs. I put the UMD disc in, you can hear it spin up, and it will sit there with a little loading symbol at the bottom of the screen, but just never loads the game. So I think the UMD drive, the laser potential in this is shot as well. Gave that a good clean. As I say, it does sound like it's trying to read the disc, but it just never gets around to it. So why did I say that this was also going to be a moan? Because of the way it was packaged when it was sent out to me. I mean, come on. So it was wrapped in this piece of cardboard, and it was taped directly to the PSP. So, all right, you can see they're trying to protect it, but I hate it when people stick tape on things like this when they're selling them to people. Might not bother them, but it sure as hell bothers me when it arrives like that. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I had to scrape that tape off and clean that horrible load of tape off it as well. It's ridiculous. I think this screen situation is something that's becoming a common thing now, because my wife has got a PSP 1000 that I bought for her many, many years ago, which I'll show you now. You can see it's lovely in pink. And you can see the screen on this one is also starting to go funny. You know, I'm not sure what the hell that is behind there, but I think it was stored in a loft for a while, in a box, and I imagine maybe moisture or something's got underneath the screen, because it's, yeah, it looks awful. But in this one, the battery's completely shot and doesn't hold charge. So as soon as I pull that power cable out, it's going to turn off. But yeah, so the PSP, this is PSP 1000, similar sort of screen-related weirdness going on as my 2000 that I've just picked up. But yeah, eBay packaging, people on eBay selling things, they've got to do a better job than this with packaging. Seriously, it was absolutely ridiculous. Now, this part of the video, I'm going to respond to some comments, or I'm going to talk about some comments I've received on some of my videos. You may remember I did that sad story of the Net Your Rose PlayStation pickup. Now that, I received some comments. I didn't receive comments that I think were particularly appropriate and were particularly called for on that video. I've got to be completely and utterly honest. A couple of guys posted on there. One guy in particular said, "Are you just hoarding old tat? You know, are you actually going to use this thing? Why did you bother buying that when you could have just bought an original PlayStation for a tenner and then sprayed it black?" Well, yeah, but that's not a Net Your Rose PlayStation, is it? That's not the point. And the fact that he said hoarding old tat, you know, that kind of annoyed me, because I'm not hoarding old tat. I love all the retro gaming stuff that I picked up, and I love playing it, and I do actually play it. You know, I'm not a shelf collector, as the other person who commented on that video said. Basically, I was a shelf collector. I wasn't going to use it for the purpose that it was supposed to be used for, which was to code games and send games to it, etc. So I was a shelf collector. The point was, it was faulty. It had a laser issue. I was going to repair that. And then in the future, if someone wanted a PlayStation, Net Eurosy PlayStation, I would potentially have been open to selling the console. It would have been a working machine. It would have gone to someone working. They could have done whatever they wanted to do with it. I may have also, put it in a nice box, a nice glass box, and had it as a display piece because it's a rare piece of Sony hardware, and I absolutely love that thing. But, I'm not, other than maybe a few bits and pieces that I've picked up that I haven't really used, so you could say that they're technically, a part of a shelf collection, so to speak. Other than that, I pretty much play and use most of my systems, if not all of my systems. So, I thought those comments were uncalled for, were harsh, so, yeah, but I thought I'd respond to those anyway. One example of something where, okay, you could say that I bought that just for collection purposes is this Pikachu N64, but I did actually try and sell this on eBay recently because I thought, it's a nice thing to have, but, someone else could potentially have this. It didn't sell at all on both occasions. I wasn't asking a ridiculous amount for it either. I was asking for basically how much it's worth and how much other people were selling it for, but it didn't sell, so it's still staying with me. And the reason I don't use this is because I've got an RGB modded N64 that the wife bought me for Christmas this year, or the 2015 just gone. So I don't need to use this because this only has composite. And why should I hamper myself with composite when I've got an RGB modded N64 to play all my games on? So, yeah, there we go. And the other comment that I got, which I actually think, okay, fair enough, I will go through and talk about the cost of some of the bits and pieces that I've picked up and, and all that, because I understand where they're coming from, and I did say once before that I would go through and talk about the cost of retro gaming. It's getting ridiculous, I've got to be honest. The price of things is going up. I mean, this PSP 2000, yes, it's got a couple of issues, but even if I fix up those issues, it's going to cost me less than an independent game shop, was trying to sell me a really badly damaged, scratched up PSP 2000 that they had. They were trying to sell it for 50 quid. This cost me 11. And to sort this out is going to cost me nowhere near, including the cost of the PSP in the first place, it's not going to cost me 50 quid. And even if I don't sort the UMD issue out, it doesn't bother me too much because, of course, with the PSP, it's hacked wide open. This has got a custom firmware installed on it, so I can put games onto a memory stick. It actually came with a 4 gig memory stick. And as you can see, I've actually got Gran Turismo for PSP loaded on there. But yeah, it doesn't really bother me too much. I could even just leave the screen because I've actually got the component cable for this, for the TV out connectivity. I've actually got that from when I had a PSP 2000 back in about 2007, I think it was. So it doesn't bother me too much. But yeah, they were trying to sell it for 50 quid and it was in awful condition. It was worse than this, to be quite honest with you. So I thought I'd go through some of the things and talk about how much I've spent, some of the more expensive items. So we'll bring back Pikachu N64. He cost me £79. I literally walked past an independent shop that we've got in a local town near me, saw this and thought, I probably won't see that again and won't be able to buy it just like that. So I literally went into the shop and paid for it and bought it. So that's the Pikachu N64, 79 Great British pounds, that one. Now the Famicom obviously came boxed, but that as well was also quite expensive just on its own, and it had been AV modded at that stage. That cost me £80. Yes, 80 Great British pounds. Then getting the NES RGB board for it to get it RGB modded cost me 60, and that included the RGB SCART cable that you can see I've got specially made one in the back there. And then Ian at Mutant Caterpillar Games, he charged me 75 to get the mod actually installed. So, you total that up, that's very, very expensive. I think just over £200, although my calculation probably isn't my maths isn't that great. But yeah, I think that's cost me just over 200 quid in total. But it's awesome. I love the Famicom, and I love that it's RGB modded because the picture quality is fantastic. So it was worth doing. The Sega Multi-Mega, which is another thing that you could now say, oh, you're shelf collecting because you've bought this and you don't really use it. It's a very rare piece of Sega hardware, this one. This cost me £140 back in 2014 when I bought this. So yeah, £140 for the Sega Multi-Mega. I've got it working a bit better than it was in terms of reading CDs, but it's still not perfect. It's almost like it has to warm up before it will start reading games properly. So if anybody out there has got any ideas, I've been very, very, very careful and tweaked the laser pot, which has got it reading games much better, so I can actually get it to load even backups now. But it just takes time to actually get to begin reading discs in the first place. So yeah, but yeah, this was 140 Great British pounds. Oh, this is going to be hard to bring in. The Amiga A1200, this was actually 72 Great British pounds, but it came with so much stuff. Obviously, the power supply, mouse, joystick, a whole stack load of discs with Workbench, and also some games, some really good games, and some games that are quite expensive nowadays. So this was £72, but it's selling now. I mean, if you try and pick up an Amiga 1200 now, you could spend anything up to £140 on these things, depending on what comes with it and whether it's got any expansions in it. So again, the cost of retro gaming and picking up stuff has skyrocketed, I think, for a lot of things. And lastly, I'm going to bring in the XRGB FrameMeister. Now, the reason I'm going to bring this in is because this is probably the most expensive thing in my entire setup altogether, but it's an integral part of my setup. This, all said and done, with the cable, the RGB to Euroscart, or RGBS to Euroscart adapter cable, which has got a sync stripper inside it as well, cost me £250 to get this from Japan and to get the cable. Add another £10 on for the power supply, because I had to get a power supply for this, because obviously, yeah, I wanted to use a European/English power supply with it, and that was another tenner. So yeah, £260 all in to get this. That's not too bad though, because one of my workmates who's interested in retro gaming has recently looked at buying one of these, and he said he can't get one for less than £300. So even the cost of an XRGB FrameMeister has gone up as well, which is astonishing, I think. So yeah, I thought I'd go through that, guys. It's been quite a long video, this one. I apologise for that, and of course the negativity, which I hate doing negativity in videos, but sometimes it just has to be done. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys again soon.